This is just overwhelming. Amazing. How'd Thaddeus make a flying machine in the 1800s? Bet this thing still works.
Oh, I'm sure it's operational.
Dr. M, glad you could see all this. I know you've been looking forward to it.
Looking forward to all this and your death.
Come on.
All
Are we
right, it's
supposed to
final
banter a
boss
little?
time.
I only talked with my equals, and Bentley said no.
Well, I guess we're not gonna have any friendly banter during our final boss fight over here. Whoa, let's go ahead and yoink you down and smackaroo you. That did not do a whole, I don't think that did any damage. Let's not do that. Let's just go underneath the freaking Cooper boat over here. All right, now we can probably damage you. I remember this being another thing that I struggled with forever ago. Oh my, don't you dare. Don't you dare. Okay, I need to avoid that. Oh, I think I avoid that by going on the lasers, I think. Yes, because then it goes into the abyss. Yes, I'm remembering things. No. Oh, I do not like that dash. I do not like a lot of his attacks because he is so mean. This might wind up taking a couple tries. It might honestly do so. Okay. Don't you dare. Okay, nice. That's his first bit of health done. So he's going back into the air once again. It's a little helicopter helmet thing he has. But yeah, I do think that even though in Sly 1 and 2 we have like an established kind of character villain with Clockwork that's kind of, you know, a character throughout the story and stuff like that, especially in Sly 2, sort of. While we don't really get that within this game with all the episodes, you know, being completely different villains, completely different worlds of their own, essentially, with no connection to one another at all, and then just suddenly getting our main villain here at the end, who we've learned nothing about throughout the entire story. I do still think that it is a fascinating villain, considering he is essentially the equivalent of Bentley, except for Sly's dad, who we never meet. We never even see a picture of. Like, I love how in the Cooper Vault, the picture of Sly's dad is literally like scratched out so you can't see it, so you never even know what he looks like for the entire Oh, he has a shock landing now. Crap, so I can't always punish that. How about you don't? Yeah. There's your thingamabob that forces us to go into the lasers away here. Okay. Dang it, why do you keep doing that? Ah. Let's just get rid of the electricity ball. That was not quite what I intended there. There's your dash. There it is. Nice. All right, we're down to the last notch. We've got about the same amount of health. Hopefully this doesn't take multiple tries. His little spider bot thing is running out of legs. You suck at aiming. Well, I was trying to, there we go, grab the thingamabob. I guess we're gonna destroy another machine. Yeah, go up there, do whatever you want. Let's destroy another thing. Whoop. Thank goodness I remember how the boss works from forever. Oh, don't these ones like explode when they go over the abyss? Yes, they do, so you have to keep your distance from them. And then you can see it charging up again. Oh, that charged up fast. Is he gonna do it again? Gosh darn it! Why you do this? Do I have to attack him like really fast then? Let's avoid those explosions. Okay, we got a hit at least. Battle of attrition here. Slow and steady wins the race, after all. Okay. Yeah, that seems like it charges up again pretty darn fast. Okay. Oh, he does that with the AoE now. No. Don't. Oh, did we? Yes.
You've got some moxie, Sly. I'll give you that.
I don't know what went down between you and my father, but I'm telling you, it's not the same with me and Bentley.
You might be right. He risked his life to defend you.
I do the same for him.
Funny. Your father was never such a good friend.
We're all individuals. I might be part of all this, a member of the Cooper line, but in the end, I'm just me. Not Henriette, Thaddeus, Slight and Common, Ryoichi, or my father. Just Sly.
Please, keep your touchy-feely rhetoric to yourself. I can't stomach it. You Coopers, a bunch of dirty, attention-grubbing thieves. All of you, thieves!
Hold it right there. Both of you thieves are going to jail.
Nice to see you, gorgeous.
You too.
Oh, a love interest. I might be beaten, but I'll make you suffer.
Not her!
No one hurt my criminal.
So the final phase of the final boss is literally just closing out a last few shots here.
What happened?
Sly?
Where are we? What is this place?
Sly, can you remember anything?
No. Who are you? You look familiar.
I'm Inspector Carmelita Montoya Fox.
And who am I?
You're my partner, Constable Cooper.
Well, partner, we'd better get out of here. The ceiling's gonna go. Haven't got much time.
Let's go.
Sly! You in here? Sly? We watched as Dr. M just stood there, unwilling to leave as the walls caved in on the vault. He'd spent his life lusting over the Cooper fortune, and he wasn't going to give it up, no matter what the cost. Our exit was a little rough, but Murray managed to get us out just in time to witness the final fate of the Cooper legacy. It was a bittersweet moment. The end of the road always is. We both looked on, lost in our thoughts, thinking back on all the adventures that had brought us here. The people we'd met and places we'd seen. We'd worked for a long time to get Sly into that great vault, and now its secrets were hidden again, this time for good. I could only hope that he'd found what he was looking for in there. We searched every inch of the island for Sly, retrieving the gang one by one, only to make the surprising discovery that he didn't want to be found. As always, he'd left a calling card, only this time, it was worth millions. The months rolled by, and when Sly still hadn't shown up, Murray headed back east to complete his training with the Guru. Without Sly as our leader, for the first time, we each had to step out on our own. A difficult thing. We'd been together ever since we met at the orphanage. To this day, Murray and I are still close. Recently, he's been trying to break into the pro racing circuit, stock van class. Things are looking good. He's got a unique talent for living through crashes other people would have found fatal. Just always bounces clear. And of course, there's Penelope, my new partner in crime. Let me tell ya, I'm in love. She and I have set out on a journey that I never would have dreamed up while running with Sly and Murray, although I hope our paths will cross again soon. So while this might be the end of our adventures together, it could be the start of something even bigger. Time will tell. Literally, 'cause I'm building a time machine to find out.
I find it very fascinating how with the final cutscene, it's Bentley who's the one to narrate it since Sly isn't around, and
Dimitri went on to become a celebrity skin diver. The ladies flocked to him, and so did the money. I got a postcard from him once. It said, "I'm here, wish you were fine, like me." He's his own man.
I'm here, wish you were fine like me on a postcard. So I don't think I'll be able to get my full review right now because there's going to be a little bit of a...
Panda King returned to China and lived a happy life living 2 doors down from his beloved daughter. She, of course, was pleased to have him screen all of her future suitors. As of yet, she's still unmarried.
Also, hello, Diego. You got us right at the end of finishing up this game. I'll probably wind up giving my full review of it in a second
The Guru returned to the Outback and took on some new Dreamtime students. One of which was a high-profile rock star that brought a lot of unwanted media attention. Last I heard, he was hiding out in New York City. Figured it was the last place they'd ever look.
I wonder what that could be a reference to. Well, sure wonder what that could be a reference to. Yeah, we just finished it up. We're just getting the credits here.
That sneaky devil.
So yes, this definitely was meant to be the final game in the series, to wrap up everyone's stories, to wrap up the Sly series in general. So something that's very interesting about, like, the whole trilogy is the fact that throughout the trilogy, it's very much, yeah, that's the answer there that little post-credit sequence reveals. But it's very fascinating because throughout the trilogy, the game essentially, like, glorifies Sly's family, and he looks up to them and wants to be like them, and yada yada, and that's what he's striving to replicate and such to continue. I'm gonna turn down the game sound a little bit here. He essentially strives to continue his family legacy of thievery and such, and be the best master thief he can be, and bring honor to his family, and yada yada, and that's like his big character motivation through most of the trilogy, apart from, like, you know, the antagonist that you fight. But, like, his whole reason for thieving is for the sake of, like, his family, continuing his family line, so on and so forth, being like the next in the Cooper line, and so on and so forth. But in the third game here, by the end, when he's on death's door at the beginning of the final episode here, Honor Among Thieves, he essentially says to himself, like, oh, if only I had, like, one more chance, all I'm interested in now is just admitting how I feel to the person I care about. And as we learn through Dr. M, with lines like, oh, your father was never such a good person. We never actually meet Sly's father, but he's been a person that's been very, very glorified throughout the whole series, whereas the finale of the whole trilogy essentially gives the perspective that, hey, maybe they weren't such good people after all. And such. I love how the morals of the game is about thieves, that no matter how honorable your thefts are, you're still stealing, and it's wrong. Yeah, and at the end, he's like, okay, he's looking at this fortune, and it's like, what is this really doing in this vault? Like, I'm sure that all the Coopers in the past of the story of these games have probably had allies like Bentley and Murray, like Sly's father had the McSweeney person that we meet in one cutscene at the beginning of the game, and then Dr. M, who winds up being the main antagonist. So I'm sure that there's plenty of, you know, people who've helped this family throughout history. And the fortunes that they make through thefts, is it shared with, like, those who help the Coopers? No, it's locked away in a vault to collect dust and just, you know, be there for the sake of their honor and being able to pass it down amongst their own family and those who help them along the way. They seemingly don't get any of that. It's just being locked away in this vault for the Cooper family exclusively and such. And then there's lines like, as I mentioned before with Dr. M saying, like, your father was never such a good person. It very much seems to imply that, like, these people that have been glorified throughout this entire trilogy, maybe they focused a little bit too much on their honor and their pride and how good of thieves they were, rather than caring enough about the people around them. And by the end, in this entire trilogy of games about thievery, our main character as a thief decides, hey, I'm gonna abandon this. I'm going to fake amnesia and leave my old life behind me and pursue a new life that I can be content in, and essentially be like the last of the line of thieves, essentially. Not continue that legacy anymore. Put a stop to it there and not continue his family line anymore, even though the entire series up to this point was about, hey, let's continue to bring honor to the family line and continue doing that as all his family did before him. But by the end of end of the story, he decides, hey, I don't want to continue this anymore. The family stops here. Like, the whole family tradition stops here. Everybody at the end of this game goes like their own separate ways, pursues their own passions. And I think that that's a really nice way to wrap things up. And that really goes to show how much this game was intended to be the finale of the story, and why one of the reasons that a Sly 4 should not have happened in the way that it did, at least in the story format that it did, because this was meant to be like the end. There is no more gang. It's completely disbanded, and they're all pursuing their own things. And it's a really cool kind of moral at the end, considering it's a trilogy about thievery. And by the end, what the main character does is renounce that, say, I'm putting a stop to the family line here, and, you know, pursuing the people around me that I care about, instead of, you know, not really caring about them as much as he should, as his family before him most likely did, as is heavily implied. And it's really fascinating because most platformer games usually don't have that deep of stories. Most platformer games are like super simple, go do the goal, whatever the heck. Like, you don't expect like plots like that in platformer games. Like, the Sly trilogy is such an exception for, you know, storytelling in platformer games, which is very fascinating. But yeah, if they were going to bring back the franchise, they should have just rebooted it, new universe and all. I absolutely agree with that. Or at least have done like some kind of crazy excuse. And like, if there was some new goal, some new villain to take down in like, let's say a theoretical different version of Sly 4 that isn't the one that existed. If there was some big bad villain that surfaced and Sly did have to go back to like his line of thievery to pursue that, he should have had to be like really reluctant. Like, no, I really don't want to go back to that life. I've left that behind me. I don't want to pursue that anymore. But you know what the writers in Sly 4 did? At the beginning of Sly 4, he's like, yeah, this life is great and all, but you know, eventually the old thieving itch came back. Like, I knew I just had to pull a heist. That's what they did to Sly's character in Sly 4. His entire character arc across the trilogy, and especially in this game, that eventually led him up to the decision of leaving his old life behind him and pursuing the happiness of those around him and such. Yeah, they just throw it in the trash can for that game. It's stupid. That game was released almost a decade after this one, and by a completely different company. Like, Sucker Punch, who worked on Sly 1 to 3, this was their final Sly game. This was the end to the story. And then Sony was just like, you know what? Let's give the IP to this other group. They can whip something together and see what happens, and completely undo the storytelling work of the series up to that point. But it's really fascinating. I would definitely, it's not like I've played a lot of game trilogies. I don't exactly know a lot of game trilogies, but regardless, I would say this is my favorite game trilogy. And it's also the perfect example of a trilogy having a beginning, middle, and end, because the first game was all about introducing the characters and showing like, okay, this is what they're all about. This is like the battle that they're fighting and yada yada. This is what they stand for, stuff like that. And then the second game, which is the darkest game in the entire series, considering the goal of that game is to literally collect the corpse of your ancient foe so that you can destroy it properly, so that it doesn't revive itself and continue to try to destroy your entire family line. It's a perfect example of the middle point in a story, putting your characters through hardships and hard times and stuff. Like, there are 2 points within Sly 2 that are like the lowest the characters fall in the entire series, and it's like, whoa, how do they even bounce back from this? And then the third game is all about wrapping up the character stories. Like, it factors in some more characters and definitely does a better job than the previous games of showing the relationships between the characters. Like, I very much like the dialogue and exchanges, and they made more of an effort to have more missions that factored in multiple characters. Like the bar fight in the second episode, for example, is a perfect example of them putting a mission together to show the relationship between the characters. So it's a perfect example of a beginning, middle, and end in a trilogy, because it's like, introduce the characters in the first game, put them through some crazy hardships in the second game, and then wrap up their stories and their character arcs within the third game and and finally close the book of all these character stories and such. And it's so weird coming back to Sly 3 after not having played this in so long and being able to identify so many things that I couldn't identify as a kid. Like how racist it is of their portrayal of the Guru character. Like, it is so racist towards Aboriginal people. Him right there. It's so weird identifying stuff like that as an adult, or even just looking at other things that I wouldn't have noticed as a kid, like the comment that Bentley says about Mugshot's mother in Flight of Fancy, which has gotta be one of the most legendary lines in this entire series. It's so crazy. Or in A Cold Alliance, the prideful rooster antagonist in that one, the line that he says that is so sexist. It's like, whoa, how did this game get the freaking everyone 10 and up rating? Like, what the heck? And then Slide 2, the darkest game in the whole series. That one got an everyone rating somehow. Times were different back then. Like, Slide 2 released in 2004, this game in 2005, and I believe Slide 1 was 2003, I think? Man, times were different. Times were definitely different, but these will definitely always hold a near and dear place to my heart. I adore this game trilogy. I don't know if it's something I'd ever cover on the channel again, since, you know, we've covered the whole story by now. But these are definitely games that I will absolutely go back and play in the future. Like, on my own time or something like that, considering how much I adore these games. Because, like, they're not long games. It's not like I'm hopping into a 70-hour JRPG like Xenoblade or something like that. They're relatively short-ish games, but they're relatively short-ish platformer games that tell a story that you wouldn't expect a shortish platformer game to tell, which is honestly really fascinating. So, yeah, the Sly series will always be near and dear to me. And this has actually been a really fun kind of annual tradition of doing one of the games each year. What with doing the first game in 2019, the second game last year, 2020, and now the third game, finally now, in 2021. And this is definitely a series that I'm gonna have to go back and watch at some point, like these 3 games, because, you know, it progresses by a year in real life each time, and, you know, different ages of the channel and stuff like that, and the office keeps changing with more lights and stuff like that, and the equipment keeps changing, and the audio and the video gets better, and so many things change. Like, I don't know if there was a Dogi Cam last year. There might have been by then. There definitely wasn't one in 2019, but it's interesting to see how things change and such, and see that, I guess. It is going to be really sad to have this tradition go away, since there was just the 3 games here, so I can't do it for more than just the 3 years. Like, this is the 3rd year in our 3-year tradition, so the whole idea of this was me kind of reliving my childhood with some games that are near and dear to me. So next year I'll probably hop into like Roller Coaster Tycoon or something like that if you want to continue the kind of tradition of me reliving my childhood, because my 3 childhood franchises are Sly Cooper, Roller Coaster Tycoon, Pokemon. Those are my 3 childhood franchises, I would say. So maybe next year Roller Coaster Tycoon or something like that. It'll be a bit sad to see this go. Hey, maybe one day in a few years time, maybe I redo the trilogy over and see how much the channel has changed since covering the trilogy for these 3 years. Maybe it's something I can see myself doing. So anyway, it is sad to see these games go and see this kind of annual tradition go. I don't know why there's no like white shining in the right side of Murray's eyes there. My disc is all scratched up and messed up. I'm surprised my PS2 even still works. I'm surprised this controller even still works. It's crazy that so many things here work. Man, I wish I had somebody to do the 2-player versus stuff in, because it's actually kind of fun. Maybe on emulator or something like that. Maybe not for a long time, but maybe one day. But yeah, it'll be sad to see this tradition go. I've had a lot of fun with playing these games over the past 3 years of this channel, and having this channel over the past 3 years. Like, it's been a crazy journey. There has been a lot of crazy ups and downs over the course of the last 3 years of this channel, but it's definitely not something I regret. I've met a lot of awesome people in that time, made a lot of new connections, been able to foster a community that's made incredible impacts on larger scales for charity, or even smaller scales, like giving people a safe place to be able to vent about things and have others to listen to them about things that they're passionate about. And I honestly couldn't be prouder of this community over the past several years, so I definitely strive to continue fostering it and see where things go from here. But the 3-year journey so far is definitely stuff I wouldn't regret at all. Even though there's been crazy ups and downs, I wouldn't take back any of it for the world. So this has been a great journey. I'm gonna keep this outro going way too long if I keep on yammering here. So I'd like to thank everybody who stopped by and hung out for this, and anything on the channel really, considering there's like 500 hours of YouTube videos uploaded every minute, and like 5 million monthly streamers on Twitch or something like that. So any time spent here is already like way more than I could ever ask for, and already crazy generous of anybody who's willing to spend some of their time here. So I greatly appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you all know that. Anyway, I am bad with words, so before I screw up words anymore, we're gonna wrap things up here. Thank you all so much. I'm gonna go pass out and have probably some pleasant dreams tonight. So take care all. See ya.